The bullet struck Elena Cruz beneath her left collarbone at 9:17 p.m., half a second after she slammed Luca Moretti behind the marble champagne bar. Crystal glasses burst above them. 200 guests dropped beneath white-clothed tables as a second round shattered the ballroom chandelier. Elena rolled onto one knee, drew her pistol, and located the sniper's broken window across the courtyard. She fired twice, not at the vanished shooter, but at the steel fire door below the window, jamming the only protected escape route. Then, her wounded arm failed, and she collapsed beside the man she had saved. Luca caught her before her head hit the floor. For one unguarded second, fear replaced the cold authority in his face. "Stay with me, Elena." His hand pressed against her wound, while his soldiers sealed every exit. Elena tried to warn him that the shooter had deliberately missed his heart, but blood filled her mouth before she could finish. Dr. Aaron Pike, the Moretti family physician, cut open her jacket and removed the deformed round with field forceps. A thin ring of blue polymer clung to its base. Elena recognized it immediately. Moretti security used that material to protect microscopic tracking capsules from heat and impact. The sniper had not merely shot her. Someone had marked her. "Nobody touches that bullet," she whispered. Salvatore Vieri, Luca's cousin and chief of internal security, stepped closer. "Why? Afraid it might identify who hired you?" He dropped a blood-spattered document beside her. Across the top were the words "Contract of Termination." Beneath Luca Moretti's photograph, the document promised $2 million for his death. Elena's name appeared at the bottom beside her signature, thumbprint, and private security code. The execution time was listed as 9:17 p.m. Luca read it without speaking. "Check the authentication server," he ordered. Salvatore's technician opened a tablet. The report showed Elena's biometric credentials entering Luca's locked office at 9:16. At 9:17, while Elena was taking the bullet, someone using her retinal profile had approved the contract from Luca's private terminal. "That's impossible," Elena said. "I was here." "Which means you arranged an alibi no one could question," Salvatore replied. "You take a survivable wound. Luca trusts you completely, and your partner finishes the job during the confusion." Elena looked at the bullet tray. The blue polymer ring was gone. Dr. Pike had turned toward his medical case for only a moment, but it had been enough. Someone in the ballroom now possessed the tracker's control tag. If Elena escaped or was released, they would follow the capsule still embedded near her shoulder. And the only place she could safely remove it was the hidden clinic beneath a house in Yonkers, the same house where she had concealed someone from the Moretti family for 3 years. "Luca, isolate your security network," she said. "Do not let Salvatore move the evidence." Every weapon in the room turned toward her. Salvatore gave a quiet, wounded laugh. "Now she accuses me." Luca's expression hardened, but Elena saw the conflict behind it. He owed his life to the woman bleeding at his feet. The evidence said she had arranged the attack herself. At midnight, the 5 families would gather to decide whether Luca remained strong enough to control New York's eastern routes. If word of an internal betrayal reached them first, they would divide his territory before morning. Luca removed Elena's pistol from her holster. "Give me the name of the person you were protecting," he said. Elena's silence lasted only 3 seconds, but it condemned her. Luca rose and handed her weapon to Salvatore. "Take her below. No telephone, no visitors. No one leaves this building before the council arrives." 2 guards lifted Elena by the arms. As they carried her toward the basement, Salvatore leaned close enough for only her to hear. "Run," he murmured. "I need you to show me where she survived." 3 days before the bullet, Elena Cruz stood alone in the Moretti Grand Hotel ballroom at 5 in the morning, studying the room as if every empty chair intended to kill Luca. The event planners had placed his table beneath the chandelier because it looked impressive in photographs. Elena moved it 11 feet west. She replaced the floral centerpieces because their ceramic bases could conceal explosives, locked the service elevator because a temporary waiter had failed his background check, and ordered ballistic film for the courtyard windows after discovering that one pane had been installed 2 millimeters thinner than the others. By 7, the ballroom looked unchanged. That was the nature of Elena's work. If she performed it perfectly, no one noticed she had done anything at all. She was 33, broad-shouldered and plus-size. With dark hair she kept pinned above her collar, and the controlled movements of someone who never wasted strength. Hotel employees often mistook her for an administrator until she identified the weapons beneath their jackets from the way their coats pulled when they walked. Luca never made that mistake. He trusted Elena's judgment with his life, yet he rarely asked what her judgment cost her. At 8, he entered the ballroom with Salvatore Vieri and 6 armed captains. Luca wore a charcoal suit without a tie, his expression already sharpened by a night without sleep. "Why did you move my table?" he asked. "The original position gave a shooter 3 elevated angles and put your back to the service corridor. The windows are armored." One wasn't. Luca glanced toward Salvatore. "I was told the inspection was complete." Salvatore smiled without embarrassment. "Elena distrusts architecture, weather, and probably God. That is why we keep her." The captains laughed. Elena did not. She handed Luca a revised security plan, marked with red tabs. Every route had 2 alternates. Every guard's assignment overlapped another by 4 minutes, preventing anyone from creating an unsupervised gap. Luca examined only the first page before passing it to Salvatore. Implemented. He never saw the handwritten notation on page 6. Tracking ammunition removed from Armory 3. Replacement quantity does not match training schedule. Elena had found the discrepancy during the previous night's inventory. The missing rounds used blue polymer capsules designed to mark vehicles, cargo, or people without transmitting until activated by a separate control tag. Luca's legitimate security company manufactured them under a federal tracking license. Only 3 men could authorize their release: Luca, Salvatore, and Elena. The Belandi delegation confirmed attendance. Salvatore said, "Vittorio is bringing 12 men. He was approved for 6, Elena replied. "He claims the others are legal advisors. Legal advisors do not carry custom Berettas." "In this family, some do," Luca said. His phone rang, and Salvatore immediately stepped close enough to view the caller's name. Elena noticed the movement. Luca did not. For 3 years, Salvatore had positioned himself at Luca's right hand by solving crises before anyone else learned they existed. He controlled guard rotations, encrypted communications, armory access, and the loyalty payments distributed to captains. Luca believed blood made Salvatore dependable. Elena believed unchecked access made anyone dangerous. "I need the private office available during the reception," Luca said after ending the call. At 11:30, the captains will sign the Eastern Port Agreement. No delays. "Your office terminal should remain offline during a public event," Elena warned. "The agreement requires biometric authentication. Then you will guard the terminal." Salvatore's smile returned. "Unless Elena plans to be in 2 places at once." Luca looked at her for a moment. There had been a time when he would have asked why she seemed troubled. Recently, every conversation between them ended at duty. "You handle threats," he said. "I'll handle the family." Elena accepted the boundary without answering. At noon, she drove to a grocery store in Yonkers during her scheduled break. She bought antibiotics, fresh bandages, and a box of lemon tea, paid in cash, then placed the bag inside a gray sedan parked behind the building. She never approached the driver. She never looked toward the woman waiting inside. Their arrangement had kept Sofia Moretti alive for 3 years, and it depended upon Luca never learning that his younger sister had survived the car explosion that killed their father. Elena returned to Manhattan at 1:08 p.m. and found Salvatore waiting beside her desk. He held her armory report in one hand. "Missing ammunition?" he asked. "Probably a counting error." "Then why did you take the report from my locked drawer?" Salvatore placed it down carefully. "Because Luca has enough enemies without you inventing new ones." He walked away before she could stop him. Elena opened her security console and checked the access history. At 12:47, while she had been in Yonkers, her credentials had authorized a change to Luca's ballroom route. The new route placed him directly beneath the thin courtyard window she had ordered replaced. Elena restored the original plan and reached for Luca's private number. Before she could call, a message appeared on her screen from an unknown sender. It contained a photograph taken 11 minutes earlier. Elena leaving the grocery store, with Sofia's gray sedan visible behind her. Beneath it were 6 words: "Report the breach, and she dies." Elena did not touch the keyboard after the photograph appeared. If the sender could alter Moretti access records and watch a grocery store 40 minutes away, Replying would only confirm that the threat had reached her. She photographed the screen with the small instant camera she kept for evidence that could not be remotely erased, wrote the exact time on the white border, and sealed the picture inside a tamper-evident envelope. Then she disconnected the console from the network. The threatening message vanished immediately. No archive remained, which meant it had been injected through the hotel's internal security relay rather than delivered through an outside carrier. Salvatore controlled that relay. So did two technicians and Luca himself. Suspicion was not proof. Elena began with the possibility of a routine malfunction. She examined the ballroom route file and found no malware, no broken encryption, and no foreign login. The system claimed she had personally authorized the change using her retinal scan. But beneath the authentication record was an obsolete identifier, EC07, assigned when Elena first joined the Moretti organization. Her current scanner issued EC12. Someone had not copied her living eye. They had inserted an old biometric template taken from the security archive. Only an administrator could reach that archive. Elena printed the record on the isolated maintenance printer, signed across the timestamp, and added it to the envelope. Then she performed a test. She created 3 versions of Luca's afternoon movement schedule. Salvatore's digital copy placed Luca in the underground garage at 4:10. The technician's copy sent him through the kitchen at 4:20. Luca's paper copy kept him inside his office. Elena released no general update. At 3:55, 2 unfamiliar hotel electricians entered the underground garage, carrying tool cases too heavy for wiring equipment. They disappeared when Elena's guards approached, abandoning a van registered to a shell company. Someone had acted upon the false route given only to Salvatore. Elena searched the van herself. The tool cases contained legal electrical equipment, clean uniforms, and nothing that justified an arrest or confrontation. Yet the rear suspension carried fresh white dust identical to the limestone used around Armory 3. The men had either transported something from the armory or wanted investigators to think they had. Even the clue could be bait. Elena called Luca's secure line from a hardwired telephone that bypassed Salvatore's relay. Luca answered on the 4th ring. "I need 10 minutes alone," she said. "It concerns your protection. Tell me now." In the background, Elena heard Salvatore discussing the Belandi seating arrangement. She could not mention Sofia, the photograph, or the cloned credential while he listened. "When I ask you to change position tomorrow, do it without questioning me." Luca went silent. "Is there a confirmed threat?" "Not one I can explain over this line." "Then bring me evidence." "I'm trying." Salvatore's voice moved closer to the receiver. "What has Elena found this time?" Luca exhaled. "The Eastern Port Agreement is already unstable. I will not accuse my own people based on her instincts." "It isn't instinct." "Then prove it before the reception." The line disconnected. Elena stared at the receiver. Luca trusted evidence because evidence could be controlled. It was the principle that had made him a disciplined leader instead of a paranoid one, but it also meant the person controlling his systems could shape his reality. Elena had 48 hours to build a case without using those systems. She left the hotel through the laundry dock, changed cars twice, and entered a 24-hour veterinary clinic in Queens through its rear door. Dr. Naomi Reed, a former Army medic who owed Elena her life, locked the room behind them. Elena placed the instant photograph and the biometric record on the table. "If I miss Sunday's check-in, move our patient," Elena said. Naomi studied the grocery store photograph. "Move her where?" "She knows the fallback address." "Sophia won't leave without you." "Then don't tell her I'm missing. Tell her I betrayed Luca." Naomi's expression hardened. "You have protected that woman for 3 years, because you believed someone inside the Moretti family ordered the bombing. Now you think that same person is coming for you. Not for me. They need me to lead them to her." Naomi urged Elena to disappear before the reception, but Elena refused. Running would leave Luca inside a compromised building with an attack route prepared under her name. It would also confirm to Salvatore that his threat had worked. Elena returned to the hotel shortly after midnight and entered Armory 3 using a mechanical override that produced no digital record. The ammunition cabinet was full. Every box bore the correct serial number, weight, and inspection seal. She opened one marked as tracking rounds and found ordinary bullets packed beneath a false upper tray. 24 blue polymer rounds were missing. On the workbench lay a single strand of red carpet fiber from the ballroom and a disposable retinal scanner containing Elena's archived EC07 template. Footsteps sounded outside. Elena extinguished her flashlight and slipped behind the reinforced door as it opened. Salvatore entered with Dr. Pike. Pike set a surgical case on the workbench. "The capsule will survive the impact?" he asked. "If you place the shot where I told you," Salvatore replied. "And if she refuses to run?" Salvatore lifted one of the blue tracking rounds and smiled. "Then Luca will give her a reason." Elena remained behind the armored door until Salvatore and Dr. Pike left Armory 3. She could have stepped out and killed both men before they reached the corridor. Instead, she photographed the retinal scanner where they had abandoned it, because two bodies and her accusation would never prove who else belonged to the conspiracy. When she reached for the scanner itself, its casing began to hiss. Acid flooded the internal circuits, destroying the archived biometric template. Salvatore had expected her to find it. At 2:13 a.m., Elena received another photograph. Sophia was asleep beside the Yonkers clinic window, unaware that a rifle sight had been centered on the glass. The message beneath it read, "Stand beside Luca tomorrow, or the next bullet is hers." Elena understood the design. Salvatore needed Luca alive long enough to sign the Eastern Port Agreement at 11:30. He needed Elena wounded, accused, and desperate enough to run towards Sophia. The tracking capsule would reveal the woman whose existence could destroy him. Elena called Naomi from a payphone and activated their emergency relocation plan, but she deliberately withheld Sophia's destination from herself. If Elena did not know where Sophia had gone, no threat or tracker could force her to reveal it. "Do not contact me again," she ordered. "If I arrive alone, assume I'm being followed." Before dawn, Elena returned to the hotel and placed the instant photographs inside a numbered evidence envelope beneath the false bottom of Luca's mechanical desk clock. Electronics could be altered. The clock could not connect to Salvatore's network. She set its alarm for 11:45, 15 minutes after the port agreement was scheduled to be signed. If she failed to stop the attack, Luca would hear the alarm and find what she had hidden. But when the reception began, Luca moved the clock to a conference room upstairs without examining it. At 9:17 p.m., the sniper fired. Elena recognized the false angle 1 heartbeat before impact and shoved Luca behind the champagne bar. The round entered beneath her collarbone, exactly where Salvatore had planned. Everything that followed, the contract, the impossible biometric record, the missing polymer ring, Salvatore's accusation, unfolded with the precision of a rehearsed execution. 40 minutes after Luca ordered her taken below, the 5 families arrived early. Salvatore had summoned them himself. Elena was brought into the underground council chamber in a wheelchair, one wrist cuffed to its frame. Dr. Pike had closed her wound, but left the tracking capsule inside the damaged muscle. Fever already blurred the edges of her vision. Luca stood at the head of the black table, while Salvatore projected the evidence across the wall. Elena's authenticated contract, the retinal login from Luca's office, the $2 million payment routed through an account opened under her dead mother's name, and surveillance photographs of Elena at the Yonkers grocery store. The gray sedan behind her was registered to a Belandi shell company. "She met our enemies less than 48 hours before the attack," Salvatore said. "I was protecting someone," Elena answered. Don Vittorio Belandi leaned back in his chair. "Then give us the name." Elena looked only at Luca. If she spoke Sophia's name, every man in the room would know Luca's sister had survived, and Salvatore's people could search clinics, safe houses, and Moretti properties before Naomi completed the relocation. "I can't," Luca's jaw tightened. "You mean you won't? Search the mechanical clock from your office. There is evidence inside it." Salvatore exchanged a glance with one of his guards. Minutes later, the clock arrived. Its false compartment was empty. The photographs and biometric record were gone. Luca gave Elena one final opportunity. "Tell me who you met in Yonkers, and I will delay judgment." "Delay it for how long? Until Salvatore finds her?" A murmur moved around the table. Salvatore lowered his gaze as if wounded by the accusation. Luca walked to Elena and removed the silver Moretti security insignia from her blood-stained jacket. She had worn it for 6 years. "Elena Cruz is stripped of my protection," he announced before the 5 families. "Until this council determines her guilt, No debt, oath, or service places her above its judgment. The words did more than imprison her. They told every Moretti enemy that she could be taken without retaliation. Elena saw satisfaction flicker in Salvatore's eyes. Luca had made the decision the evidence demanded, but he had made it publicly, knowing what public abandonment meant in their world. 2 guards wheeled her toward the basement loading bay for transfer to Dr. Pike's private clinic. Elena waited until the elevator passed the laundry level, then drove her heel against the emergency brake she had installed during the hotel renovation. The car stopped between floors. When one guard opened the service hatch, Elena pulled the fire suppression lever. Chemical foam blinded both men. She locked their weapons inside the elevator control cabinet, climbed through the hatch using her uninjured arm, and lowered herself onto a laundry cart. Every movement tore at the wound, but she did not fire a shot. 12 minutes later, she disappeared inside a linen truck. Salvatore activated the capsule and followed its signal toward Queens. Elena let him. Naomi was waiting inside an abandoned veterinary clinic with sterile instruments and no lights. She removed the capsule without widening the bullet wound, sealed it inside a bag of medical waste, and placed the bag aboard a disposal truck headed for New Jersey. Elena nearly lost consciousness as Naomi closed the incision. "Sophia is gone," Naomi whispered. "Even I don't know where." Outside, 3 black Moretti vehicles raced after the false signal. Elena watched them pass, then saw a 4th car stop across the street. Salvatore stepped out alone. He had never trusted the tracker, and he was looking directly at the darkened clinic window. Salvatore remained across the street from the veterinary clinic for less than a minute before 4 armed men joined him. Elena watched through a narrow gap in the blinds, while Naomi packed antibiotics, blood-clotting gauze, and 2 bags of saline into a canvas case. Elena could barely lift her left arm. The bullet had fractured no bone, but the damaged muscle would not survive another climb or close fight. "Rear door?" Naomi whispered. "Covered. Roof?" "He expects that." Elena looked at the examination cages lining the basement wall. The clinic had once housed animals seized by customs officers, and its largest kennel connected to a delivery tunnel beneath the neighboring pharmacy. She had chosen this place 2 years earlier for precisely that reason. Elena poured disinfectant over the blood on the table, left the surgical instruments where Salvatore would see them, and placed the empty tracking capsule case beside the sink. Then she and Naomi entered the kennel and pulled its rusted panel closed seconds before the front lock broke. Back at the Moretti Hotel, Luca stood inside the stopped elevator and examined the scene Elena had left behind. Both guards were alive. Their weapons had been locked inside the control cabinet, and the chemical foam had been released at a height that blinded without burning their lungs. Elena had escaped from men who believed her to be an assassin, yet she had refused to kill them. That was the first contradiction. Luca returned to the ballroom and ordered the sniper's trajectory reconstructed without Salvatore's security software. Captain Gabriel Rizzo stretched a cord from the broken courtyard window to the mark in the marble bar. The line did not pass through the place where Luca had been standing. It crossed Elena's assigned position. "The shooter was aiming at her," Gabriel said. "Then why did she push me down?" Luca asked. "Because the second shot might not have missed. Dr. Pike had already disappeared. So had the tray containing the bullet." Luca entered his private office and examined the authentication report himself. Elena's retinal approval displayed the identifier EC07. He remembered the day she had replaced that credential after a scanner malfunction 2 years earlier. Her current identifier was EC12. A live scan could not have produced an obsolete code. That was the second contradiction. Luca felt no relief, only a cold pressure beneath his ribs. He had publicly removed his protection from a wounded woman based upon evidence created inside a system controlled by his own cousin. "Where is Salvatore?" he asked. Gabriel checked the hotel exits. "He left 12 minutes after Elena escaped. No authorization, no escort log." Luca studied the tracking console. The capsule removed from Elena was traveling west toward a medical waste facility in New Jersey. Yet Salvatore's armored sedan had crossed the Queensboro Bridge in the opposite direction. Luca called him. "The tracker is moving toward Newark," Luca said. "I'm sending Gabriel's men to intercept it." Salvatore answered without hesitation. "I'll meet them there." Luca ended the call. 5 minutes later, Salvatore's car continued deeper into Queens. That was the third contradiction. Luca and Gabriel left through the hotel's private garage with two men whose families owed loyalty directly to Luca, not Salvatore. At the veterinary clinic, Salvatore found the surgical room still warm and the tracking capsule gone. He struck Naomi's discarded coffee cup from the counter and ordered his men to search the walls. One guard discovered the kennel panel. Elena heard the screws tearing from the frame as she and Naomi moved through the delivery tunnel. The narrow passage forced Elena to crawl on her right forearm, dragging her wounded side over concrete. Blood soaked through the fresh bandage. At the pharmacy end, she pushed the access hatch upward and found it blocked by a steel cabinet that had not been there during her last inspection. Salvatore had studied her contingency sites more thoroughly than she believed. Footsteps entered the tunnel behind them. Elena passed Naomi her pistol. When the panel opens, fire once at the ceiling pipe. That won't stop them. It will if the pipe carries veterinary anesthetic. Naomi fired. The round ruptured a pressurized line used by the old clinic's animal sedation system. White vapor filled the tunnel. Elena and Naomi covered their mouths with wet gauze while the first two gunmen collapsed behind them. The remaining men withdrew, but Salvatore stayed beyond the vapor and called Elena's name. "Luca condemned you in front of every family in New York," he said. "Give me Sophia, and I will let you disappear." Elena pressed her back against the wall. "You killed her 3 years ago, remember?" Silence answered her. Then Salvatore laughed. "You never understood what she carried out of that car." A gunshot cracked through the tunnel. Naomi jerked backward, struck in the thigh by a round fired through the wooden panel. Elena returned 2 shots toward the muzzle flash, forcing Salvatore away, then used the pistol grip to shatter the pharmacy hatch lock. She and Naomi pushed together until the steel cabinet tipped. Elena climbed into the dark pharmacy, pulled Naomi after her, and found Luca standing beside the rear exit with his weapon raised. For a second, no one moved. Elena's pistol pointed at Luca's chest. Gabriel aimed at Elena. Naomi bled between them. "Lower your gun," Luca ordered. "The last time I trusted your order, you handed my weapon to Salvatore." Luca looked at the blood spreading across her bandage, then lowered his own pistol and placed it on the floor. "The retinal record used EC-07. The sniper aimed at you. Salvatore drove here after I told him the tracker was in Newark." Elena did not lower her weapon. "You needed 3 contradictions to question him. You needed only 1 contract to destroy me." The words struck harder because Luca had no defense. Gunfire erupted inside the clinic as Salvatore's remaining men tried to reach the pharmacy. Gabriel barricaded the connecting door, while Naomi collapsed beside a display counter. Luca pushed his weapon across the floor toward Elena. "You know this building. Tell me what to do." It was the first time he had surrendered command to her. Elena ordered Gabriel to open the sprinkler valve, Luca to cut the main electricity, and Naomi to trigger the pharmacy's silent robbery alarm connected to a private security company outside Moretti control. Darkness swallowed the building. Under Elena's direction, they crossed the stockroom, exited through the refrigerated delivery bay, and reached Luca's car before Salvatore's men discovered the route. Gabriel drove, while Elena kept her pistol trained on Luca. Naomi lay across the rear seat, with a pressure bandage around her thigh. "Who is Sophia?" Luca finally asked. Elena watched him in the passing streetlights. "Your sister." Luca's face went still. "My sister died with my father." Sophia escaped the car before the fuel tank exploded. She saw Salvatore leaving the garage, and she carried your father's original port ledger with her. It proves Salvatore had been selling Moretti shipping routes to Belandi for years. Your father was taking it to you when the bomb detonated. Luca struggled to speak. "Why didn't she come to me?" "Because the order changing the car route carried your private authorization. Until tonight, neither of us knew whether Salvatore forged it or whether you sent your father into that garage." A telephone hidden inside Naomi's medical case began to ring. Elena answered but said nothing. A woman's frightened voice came through the speaker. "Elena, the fallback house is compromised." Luca closed his eyes at the sound of the sister he had mourned for 3 years. Then Sophia whispered, "Salvatore found the ledger, and he says Luca must sign the port agreement by noon, or he'll burn me with it." Elena kept Sophia talking, while Gabriel drove south through Queens. "Can you see daylight?" she asked. "No." "Can you hear traffic?" Only water and a bell every 30 minutes. Sophia's answers sounded ordinary, but she and Elena had practiced this interrogation pattern for years. Water meant she was near the river. A bell instead of a clock meant an active shipping terminal. When Sophia added that the room smelled like burnt sugar, Elena identified the location: Warehouse 17 at the Moretti Eastern Port, beside a refinery that heated molasses for industrial alcohol. Salvatore was holding her beneath the same customs hall where Luca was expected to sign the port agreement at noon. An assault would fail. The warehouse possessed only 2 entrances, both visible from a steel observation room, and Salvatore could kill Sophia before Luca's men crossed half the distance. Worse, refusing to attend the ceremony would tell Salvatore that Luca had joined Elena. "We continue the signing," Elena said. Luca looked at her as if she had suggested surrender. "The agreement transfers terminal inspections to Salvatore's division. That is what he wants. If you cancel it, he kills Sophia and destroys the ledger. If you attend, he must keep both close until your signature is verified. You are asking me to put my sister beneath the man who murdered my father. I'm asking you to stop treating control as the same thing as protection." Luca accepted the blow without anger. "Then it is your operation." They left Naomi at a private surgical center owned by Gabriel's family. The bullet had passed through her thigh without striking the artery, but she would remain under guard and off her feet. From the clinic, Elena contacted Miriam Cho, the compliance director of Luca's legitimate tracking ammunition company. Miriam searched the Federal Manufacturing Registry, a system Salvatore could view but not alter. Batch 44C, the ammunition used against Elena, had been released from storage at 2:06 on the morning before the reception under Salvatore's administrator certificate. The registry proved access, not who loaded or fired the round. Still, it connected him to the weapon. Gabriel returned to the hotel maintenance room and removed the carbon audit ribbon from the isolated printer Elena had used. Under angled light, the ribbon revealed every character from her deleted biometric report, including EC07 and the 12:51 printing time. It proved Elena had discovered the forged authentication 8 hours before the attack. She could not have invented it afterward. They now possessed proof that the official accusation was false and that Salvatore had obtained the tracking ammunition. They still lacked evidence that he ordered the bombing 3 years ago, arranged the shooting, or sold Moretti routes to Belandi. Sophia's ledger could provide the financial connection, but Salvatore controlled it. Elena constructed the rest of the plan around his belief that Luca still blamed her. At 10:20, Luca returned to the Moretti Hotel with Elena's hands visibly cuffed and Gabriel's pistol pressed against her back. Before the assembled captains, he announced that he had recaptured his former bodyguard, while she attempted to reach Belandi territory. Salvatore arrived 14 minutes later, calm enough to conceal his surprise. "Where did you find her?" "Queens," Luca answered. She admitted the woman in Yonkers was a paid witness. "There is no surviving Moretti." Elena lowered her eyes as if defeated. Salvatore studied the fresh bandage beneath her collar, then asked whether the tracking capsule had been recovered. "Medical waste truck in Newark," Luca said. "Exactly where you told me it would be." It was a quiet reminder that Salvatore had lied about following the signal. Salvatore's smile did not change, but his thumb rubbed the edge of his signet ring, a nervous habit Elena had recorded in 6 years of protection reports. Luca ordered Elena confined in the customs hall's archive room until the 5 families could judge her after the signing. The room shared a ventilation shaft with the lower warehouse where Sophia was held. That placement had been Salvatore's idea, which meant he wanted Elena close enough for Sophia's voice to break her resistance. It also placed Elena exactly where she needed to be. Before the ceremony, Luca privately told Salvatore that Elena had hidden a duplicate of the port ledger inside the base of the signing podium. Only Salvatore received that information. The ledger was a decoy prepared by Gabriel, its cover treated with an invisible chemical marker, registered to a portable customs scanner. Removing it would not prove murder, but anyone carrying it toward Belandi's delegation would expose the alliance. At 11:40, the 5 families filled the customs hall. Belandi representatives sat on the eastern side, Moretti captains on the west, and neutral attorneys occupied the center table to authenticate the transfer. The ceremony could not simply be fabricated or reversed later. Luca's signature, Salvatore's acceptance, and 3 family seals would make the agreement enforceable throughout the criminal council and the legitimate port corporation it controlled. Elena sat handcuffed in the archive room with a guard outside. Her left arm rested in a sling. She could not overpower anyone, so she did not try. She removed a narrow wire from the seam of her cuff, opened the maintenance panel beneath the ventilation grate, and connected a battery-powered receiver to the warehouse alarm circuit. That receiver gave her no control over cameras or electronic locks. It could do only 2 things: activate the fire doors and broadcast sound from the lower warehouse into the customs hall. The limitation made it difficult for Salvatore to corrupt remotely. At 11:45, the mechanical desk clock Luca had placed beside the signing papers began to ring. Salvatore looked at it. The alarm was the one detail he had overlooked after stealing Elena's evidence from its hidden compartment. While every guest turned toward the sound, Dr. Pike slipped behind the podium, removed the decoy ledger, and carried it through the service corridor toward Belandi's side of the building. Gabriel's customs scanner recorded the chemical marker passing 3 checkpoints. Salvatore had acted on information known only to him. Then the plan broke. Instead of taking the ledger directly to Belandi, Pike placed it inside Captain Gabriel's locked office and triggered a silent alert. Armed guards found the decoy beneath Gabriel's desk. Salvatore had anticipated a controlled leak and redirected the evidence toward Luca's last loyal captain. At the same moment, the archive guard opened Elena's door and fired. Elena twisted aside, but the round grazed her ribs and destroyed the alarm receiver. Downstairs, Salvatore's men dragged Sofia into the observation room and placed a pistol against her head. Her image appeared on the customs hall's presentation screen. Gasps moved through the 5 families as Luca saw his sister alive for the first time in 3 years. Salvatore stepped beside the signing table and finally abandoned his mask. "Sign the transfer," he said, "or Sofia dies before every witness in this room." Luca looked toward the archive corridor, but Elena had not emerged. Gabriel was being disarmed as a traitor. Belandi gunmen controlled the eastern exits, and Salvatore's guards sealed the west. Luca picked up the pen. "Release her first. Your signature first," Luca signed. The neutral attorneys verified the biometric seal, and 3 family representatives stamped the agreement. Salvatore lifted the document before the room. For one terrible moment, he possessed the ports, the council's recognition, Sofia's ledger, and every exit. Then the fire doors slammed shut between his gunmen and the observation room. Elena stepped from the archive corridor, blood running down her side, holding the guard's radio rather than his gun. She pressed the transmit button, and Sofia's voice filled every speaker in the customs hall. "Salvatore," Sofia said from below, "you should have checked which ledger I let you find." Every face in the customs hall turned toward Salvatore. Sofia's voice continued through the speakers while Elena leaned against the archive doorway, conserving enough strength to remain standing. "The ledger you took from the fallback house was prepared for you," Sofia said. "Every account number inside it was real except one. Account 7719 never existed until Elena told Luca about it this morning." Salvatore's eyes moved involuntarily toward Don Vittorio Belandi. It was a small reaction, but Elena had spent 6 years protecting men by noticing the movements they could not control. "Dr. Pike carried your decoy ledger toward Belandi's delegation," Salvatore replied. "That proves Gabriel and Elena framed me, not that I ordered anything. It was an intelligent defense. Pike had planted the book in Gabriel's office, and Salvatore intended to make the entire trap appear to be Elena's second conspiracy." "Then you won't recognize account 7719, Elena said. "Of course not." "Good." She raised the guard's radio. "Because 40 minutes ago, someone using your private authorization sent Belandi Logistics an instruction to move $12 million from 779 immediately after Luca signed the agreement." The neutral attorneys opened their tablets. The transfer order had traveled through the Port Corporation's legitimate banking network, where Salvatore could not erase it after verification. Belandi's financial officer had approved the request at 11:58, proving that both organizations expected the false account to receive their criminal profits. Salvatore turned on Vittorio. "You approved a number without checking it?" Vittorio understood too late that the question itself admitted their partnership. Murmurs became accusations around the hall. Elena pressed the radio button again. At the surgical center, Naomi released the evidence package that had been tied to Sophia's emergency check-in. Copies of the real port ledger arrived simultaneously in the inboxes of all 5 neutral attorneys. Sophia had photographed every watermarked page before leaving Yonkers and stored the original inside Naomi's medical vault. The entries documented 3 years of unauthorized shipments, payments from Belandi companies, and Salvatore's handwritten division of profits. Miriam Cho's federal ammunition record appeared beside them, showing that Salvatore had removed batch 44C, the tracking rounds used to shoot Elena, hours after she discovered the forged access record. Finally, Gabriel placed the maintenance printer's carbon ribbon on the signing table. Under ultraviolet light, Elena's warning about EC07 became visible. The evidence did not depend upon a single confession or witness. The printer proved the biometric record had been forged before the attack. The Federal Registry connected Salvatore to the tracking ammunition. The banking order and original ledger established his objective and partnership with Belandi. Sophia's survival explained why Elena had been marked instead of killed. Salvatore looked toward the screen, where his men still held Sophia in the observation room. "A frightened woman and a bodyguard can manufacture records," he said. "But Luca's signature cannot be manufactured. The ports belong to me." One of the neutral attorneys stood. "The transfer was executed under coercion in front of witnesses. It is suspended pending corporate and council review." Salvatore smiled thinly. "Then review it after Sophia is dead." He lifted his radio and ordered the guard below to shoot her. Elena had anticipated that contingency. The fire doors she activated had separated the observation room from Salvatore's main force, while the building's suppression system remained on a hardwired circuit outside his network. Elena entered the emergency code through the guard's radio. Dense white foam exploded from the ceiling below. Sophia dropped behind the steel customs desk as the gunman fired blindly. She found the foot control used to seal confiscated cargo during raids and drove her heel onto it. A ballistic partition slammed between them, trapping the gunman on the opposite side. Sophia had not waited to be rescued. She had followed the building plan Elena made her memorize during the call. "Sophia is secure," Gabriel announced after hearing her confirmation through the warehouse line. Salvatore's calm finally broke. He reached beneath his jacket. Elena saw his thumb brush the signet ring, the same warning she had noticed earlier. Her injured arm could not raise a weapon quickly enough. "Right hand!" she shouted. Luca stepped inside Salvatore's draw, trapped his wrist against the signing table, and drove him to the floor. The pistol discharged into the steel podium. Belandi's men reached for their weapons, but the overlapping guard assignments Elena had designed before the reception now closed around them. Each hostile shooter faced 2 Moretti guards positioned at different angles. Vittorio Belandi looked at the sealed fire doors, the neutral witnesses, and the evidence glowing across every screen. He ordered his men to surrender. Luca held Salvatore against the floor but did not execute him. A private death would have allowed the truth to become rumor. Instead, he forced his cousin to face the council, the Port Corporation's investigators, and the federal inquiry triggered by the illegal use of licensed tracking ammunition. Dr. Pike was captured in Gabriel's office while attempting to destroy the decoy ledger. His surgical instruments carried residue from the polymer capsule removed from Elena's wound, tying him physically to the attack. The sniper was arrested 2 days later, after the payment trail led to a Belandi-owned security contractor. Salvatore never confessed to bombing the car that killed Luca's father, but he did not need to. Sophia identified the signet ring she had seen beside the garage detonator, and forensic investigators recovered matching explosive residue from a sealed watch case Salvatore had kept as a trophy. Combined with the ledger, route order, and payments, the evidence ended his claim of innocence. He lost his position, assets, and every protection his family name had once provided. Weeks later, Luca reconvened the 5 families in the same customs hall. Elena attended with her left arm still in a sling. The graze along her ribs had healed, but the shoulder injury would require months of therapy, and she had not returned to duty. Luca stood before the same men who had watched him strip away her protection. "Elena Cruz did not betray the Moretti family," he said. "She protected my life, my sister, and this organization while I trusted corrupted evidence over the woman who had earned my trust for 6 years. I exposed her to our enemies, removed her protection, and made her injuries worse. Those choices were mine. There is no excuse for them. He placed her silver security insignia on the table, but did not pin it back onto her jacket. Your name is cleared in every Moretti territory. Every debt taken from you is restored. The security division Salvatore controlled is being dissolved. Its legitimate assets will fund an independent protection company under your ownership. If you want it, you will answer to no Moretti captain, including me. Elena looked at the insignia, then pushed it back toward him. I don't want my old position. Luca accepted the answer without bargaining. Then it is gone. I will take the company, she said. But the Moretti organization will be a client, not my master. My staff chooses its contracts. Sofia receives control of the legal port trust your father intended for her. And no one under my protection is ever punished without a hearing where they can present evidence. Luca signed the conditions in front of the same witnesses who had authenticated her humiliation. Elena did not forgive him that day. She spent 3 months rebuilding her strength, establishing her company, and helping Sofia recover a life that hiding had stolen from her. Luca never arrived uninvited, never demanded gratitude, and never confused regret with repair. He submitted security requests through Elena's office like every other client, and followed her decisions even when they contradicted his own. In time, cooperation became respect, without debt between them. 6 months after the shooting, Elena returned to the restored ballroom to inspect security for Sofia's first public charity gala. The table beneath the chandelier had again been placed in the wrong position. Luca found Elena moving it 11 feet west. Bad angle? He asked. 3 of them. He helped her push without questioning the order. When the table was safely positioned, Luca offered her the silver insignia one final time, not as a badge of service, but mounted inside a frame engraved with the date she had saved his life. Elena accepted the frame, then took his waiting hand by her own choice. This time, no contract, oath, family, or debt stood between them.